Hi, everybody. It's Gene Simmons, and you're not, and you're listening to the Potter Than Hell podcast with Steve, BC, BB, and Dylan. But you knew that, didn't you?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Potter Than Hell podcast. This is your last stop on the crazy train of hard rock and heavy metal. So sit back, buckle in, and hang on. Here we go.
Hey, Potter Than Hellions, welcome to the Potter Than Hell podcast. This is Steve, your host, and I'm joined as always by
BC
and
BB.
And our keyboard player this evening will be
Dylan.
And hey guys, thanks for tuning in, and thanks you guys for all your support and listening and sharing and interacting with us online. We have a special episode for you guys tonight. We have an interview episode. We haven't had one for a while. Tonight it's going to be Johnny Dee, the original drummer, not the original drummer, but the drummer that is on all of the albums for Britny Fox. Great guy. He is Doro's drummer now. He is the drummer in Kick, the NXS Experience, and they're actually on tour this summer, and they're playing a show August 18th in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, down at the Stacks. So definitely check that out. We had an awesome interview with Johnny, and we're going to play it right now. All right, guys, here we are with Johnny Dee, awesome drummer, Britny Fox drummer. He's the current drummer in the Kick, the NXS Experience. And if you've heard any kind of 80s, what they call hair metal, a good chance is Johnny's been drumming on some of it. How are you, Johnny?
I'm doing good, man. Yeah, I've been... Don't forget Doro. I know you probably mentioned that at some point, but yeah, that's
absolutely
another 80s holdover, you know, standard, and playing Warlock tunes for the last 25 years. So it's good to be here.
Yeah, that's crazy. We've met Doro a couple times actually at a couple of the Kiss Expos back in the 90s, and she was really cool, like just down to earth and just, you know, just bullshit with everybody, taking pictures. I mean, it's really cool.
Yeah, she's definitely, she loves what she does, and she's always kept a good relationship with her fans, and that's really what keeps her going. I think she loves that feedback from people and just meeting people, and she's never been one to really shy away from that. You know, she really appreciates it more than anything, really. I mean, she states it, you know, constantly, and that's kind of what keeps her going. So it's a very cool thing. She's a cool friend and person to work for, and she's a sweetheart.
Yeah,
that's super cool. Talented as well.
Yeah, we will definitely get into a little conversation with her. But let's take you back to the old young Johnny Dee days. How'd you get started into music and influences and all that kind of stuff?
I started pretty much like any kid at that time. You know, we're talking pre-internet and all that, when it was basically like learning from either seeing people play live or, you know, jamming in garages and basements. And I know that stuff still happens now, but I mean, this is like before, you know, now you can easily pick up any song you'd ever want to learn, probably on YouTube, and find a million how-tos and whatnot. So we cut our teeth in the Stone Age, if you will, and learned how to do all this stuff the hard way, I guess. But in the process, I think it toughened us up a bit. And so I just started, once I fell in love with drums. I don't even know how it happened. I think I was, you know, just watching the Monkees, or, you know, I'd seen the Beatles and like some early stuff on TV and whatnot, and just really wanted a drum kit. And that's all I ever remember. I remember looking in the Sears catalog and seeing drums and being like, gotta get some drums. And my parents were super supportive, so eventually I started playing in the basement with some friends and learning how to play along to records, kind of teaching myself. And then that progressed into just, jamming on cover songs and, trying to follow whatever path we thought we needed to go, which would be, got to play in front of people, the battle of the bands at junior high school and whatnot, and then, eventually into the clubs and stuff like that. So it was a cool learning process and a long, fun road, But then basically I got a couple lucky breaks, played in some bands around the Philly area, I guess got noticed, started meeting people, networking, and hooking up with cool players and whatnot. And just kind of eventually fell into some bands that started playing original music, and that was sort of like the launching pad.
Right, that's great, because you're a fellow Pennsylvanian too, aren't you?
I am, yeah.
You are.
That's
great.
Conshohocken.
That's great. Yeah, my other son goes to school down there at Rosemont, so I'm sure you're familiar with that school down there. And,
yeah.
When you guys you're starting out, it seemed like so we're talking probably early '80s here.
Yes.
And
yeah,
so,
I mean, formative years in the late '70s, and starting to play in bands, around '79, '80. 82, I think, was a year that really was something like, playing around Philly in an original band, which was still pretty. It was a pretty early time, there was really no scene or no real like path cut out, so
Right.
We were kind of just like blazing a trail, if you will.
right, because it seemed like just after that, then there was like more of a music scene in the Philadelphia and Jersey area. Because I mean, you had the guys from Cinderella; they were playing down around there that time, if I'm not mistaken. And
Oh yeah.
it seems like you guys had a decent relationship with those guys.
Yeah, we did. I mean, obviously, the connection was two members had left Cinderella to form Britny Fox eventually. But Philly started at the time when I was coming up, there was like such a huge cover scene. I mean, cover bands were literally like tribute bands are now. They were playing all the major rock and roll hits of the day. And at that time, I'm talking like, really cool classic rock songs. And, every band around Philly and South Jersey had like a theme. You had your people doing a Genesis show or, a Zeppelin show. And, but they would throw in all these other songs, and hits, and they would also play original music. So it was like it was cool because you could go see a band. They weren't playing a bunch of bullshit music, it was like really cool stuff that was current at the time, and also hear some of their own music. So it was cool for bands like that. They could play, get paid, also throw in a few original songs, and those are the kind of bands that I guess the next generation were kind of seeing and following, and even some of the guys from those bands had gone on to do, some other stuff like your Cinderellas and, the Britny Fox guys. Like it all come from some sort of band like that previously.
Right. So
even John Corabi, who I was in a band with like way back in early '81 or '82, we had
Called
started
Fragile,
out as
right?
as a band called Fragile, which was sort of a Zeppelin band that turned into an original band. So it was like we were all morphing into something at that time. It was pretty crazy.
yeah, that seems cool because we've met John Corabi at the M3 festival that you guys played there a couple years ago. And John was a really cool guy. And actually, I talked to him like very briefly on the Kiss Cruise 2 years ago. He really seems like a really down-to-earth guy. His voice is still just phenomenal. And, the first that we've heard of him was obviously when he was in the Scream. But
Yeah.
It's really cool that you were with him, back in the day. And, the both of you guys are still kicking ass.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy that we met so long ago, and kind of, I guess there were, we had these connections, and the guy, he stood out, miles apart at that time just from his voice, even though we were all real young. I mean, you could just tell the dude had something more than, the average singer and whatnot. Super talented guy, fucking funny as hell. And, he's just remained that way. He's a crack up. He's always breaking balls, especially like the Philly people. We're just like constantly busting each other's balls. And every time I see him, it's just like, just really fun. And I'm real proud of him too, man, because he's kept his head straight, and just kind of went for it, and just followed whatever path it was, and that's kind of what we do, I guess. It's just like you kind of take whatever you can get and keep moving forward, never give up. We're kind of like survivors or, cockroaches or something like that. We just refuse to go down.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, because it seems like guys like you and guys like John, you're always hearing about the next thing you guys are doing. John's with the Dead Daisies now, and you're with the Kick, the NXS Experience, which I can't wait to see. Actually, I just saw today that they released a date in Bethlehem in August, and
yeah, how about that? That's a pretty cool thing. I always wanted to play there at the Steel Stacks. That's going to be awesome.
Yeah, that looks great. And actually, I will absolutely be there because NXS, that's actually one of the bands that my wife actually likes also. So we will definitely be down at that show. And
that's cool. Very cool.
So maybe I'll shoot you a text before we play, and we can hook up and have a beer or something before you guys play
absolutely,
or after, whatever,
man. Hit me up for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Hopefully the weather will be good,
Yeah, well, it may stop snowing by then. I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Let's. How did you? We know you were in Waysted with some of the guys from UFO and stuff. How did that come about? Was that like someone noticed you out in one of the clubs you guys were playing and kind of snagged you up, or how'd that come about?
It's funny. I had a couple gigs that I've gotten have strictly been through either like mutual friends or somebody. I was playing in, you mentioned World War III earlier. I'll just go back to that for one sec. World War III was an original metal band from Philly who probably was a little bit ahead of their time. These guys were writing some real classic early 80s style metal, and they noticed me playing around in a cover band and asked me to join. And oddly enough, Dean Davidson was the drummer in World War III previous to me, and he left the band to try to become a front man and play guitar and whatnot. So I filled the drum position in that band, and really enjoyed playing with those guys and we actually made a record on an independent label, got a bunch of write-ups in Kerrang magazine. So I had been reading Kerrang, a big fan of that and stuff, and I had seen one day that Paul Chapman from UFO was living in Florida now and looking for some players for his new project. And I took the magazine over to my best friend Jimmy DeLella's house, and I was like, dude, you have to answer this ad. It's perfect for you. You play keyboards, you play rhythm guitar. Paul Chapman's looking for basically you, And he wrote Paul, there was no phone number. I think it was like a postal address, or it was just ridiculous how much of a long shot it was. And sent Paul his information and his phone number, and one day Paul called his house and was like, hey, I'm really interested. So long story short, Jimmy DeLella went down to Florida, started playing with Paul. They recorded a bunch of material, started doing some support gigs around town, and basically were striking out trying to get the band a deal. So Paul went back to England and took his demo tapes with him and was looking for a deal for this project. And he ran into Pete Way. Pete asked him to join Waysted because he needed a guitar player. So basically you had, now Paul was, putting his project on the side and playing with Pete again. So when they needed a guitarist, keyboard player, he called Jimmy up, and Jimmy flew over to England, started playing with Waysted. And that was like massive, for all of us kids. I mean, it was like, holy shit, one of our best friends is now in a fucking band with the guys from UFO, and he's in England doing TV shows and making records and shit. And so that was amazing. And then I guess Jerry Shirley was playing drums at the time, and he did not want to tour and continue with the band. So they were, there was another slot opened up. And Jimmy just said, I got the guy, my buddy Johnny. He's back in Pennsylvania. He's the man, and, you guys should check him out. So next thing you know, manager calls, wants me to fly over to England and audition for the band. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? You know what I mean? It was just like really surreal. But yeah, that's what ended up happening. I went over there and got the gig and ended up staying there for quite a while and doing what we did at that time, which was going to basically a farmhouse and just like holed up there and writing songs and doing pre-production for a record. And they signed with the MI Capitol. Steve Harris was helping the band out, and yeah, it was just a real like I said, surreal situation to go from basically nowhere, playing around Philly clubs, and then all of a sudden be in England playing with guys I had literally seen on stage, not too long before that, opening for Cheap Trick or Ozzy or whatever. I was a huge UFO fan. So to me, that was like, a dream come true.
That's crazy. About how old were you around then, Johnny?
I was like 22, maybe 20.
That's insane. That's just crazy.
That was my first exposure to you, was from the album Save Your Prayers from Waysted.
Cool, man. Yeah, it was a great record. It was a great time for me, to just, that was pretty much how I cut my teeth on. I had been in the studio before, but never made like a major label release or anything. And that whole thing was just like, basically learning from some real pros and all kinds of stuff, how to record, how to drink when you wake up in the morning and fall down and get back up and start fucking playing again.
Go right back. Yeah.
Oh, man.
And I have to say, Johnny, I've mentioned on our podcast before how I met you was when you were recording a track with Hit and Run. I think it was back in October and November. You said that you learned your chops there. I mean, you must have had good teachers, because I was telling these guys here and our listeners that I was just simply amazed to watch you in the studio. You literally did not get up from behind that drum kit for like 3 solid hours, like playing the same song. I was just amazed that just the professionalness and the dedication that you had just to that. And like, if you felt you just one thing wasn't quite right, boom, you were back doing it again. And whoever got you, in that mode, good for them. And I mean, I left there that night like, holy fuck.
That's cool, man. Thanks. I appreciate it. Obviously it probably shouldn't be that difficult, to cut a track, but sometimes if you're, and I have all the respect in the world for like session guys that basically do that shit for a living. I mean, I'm a guy that's always been in bands and always sort of, like I mentioned with Waysted, I mean, we would literally, back then they would, have the budgets to basically rent a place and go live there and write and have the time and the money to really do things properly, and then it all became kind of like cut the budget down, do this, go in, cut a song in an hour kind of thing. So I've seen it from both sides, and I don't really have a preference or anything. I just, sometimes you just got to work harder at something, especially if you're working for somebody and trying to get them what they hear or what they want for a track. You know what I mean? It's not always about just like, hey, I'm just going to bash the drums and play what I think it should be. I mean, sometimes you might do what you think is right, and it might be completely the wrong feel for what the guy that wrote the song is and stuff like that. So I try to take into account everybody's perspective, and I think it all becomes a better situation, when you're more open and more willing to do whatever it takes, if it is sit there for 3 hours, to do it.
Right, and what I thought really that night clicked was when Jareth came out and you guys played together without him in the booth and you out in the studio, and it seemed like you guys, like, once he came out there and you were in the same room, it seemed like you guys really locked in at that point.
I think so, because it probably took me a little longer to figure out what was really meant to be there, or sometimes you can't. If you're separated, you feel like you're in a fishbowl, especially when you don't know the song as well. If you're not practiced or, doing pre-production with an artist or something, you just go in cold. And the fact that he came out in the room and was like, there was that interaction of two people together, which is something organic that you can never really replace. You can play over the internet and stuff like that and do all kinds of crazy shit with technology these days, but I mean, just the fact that you still can get in a room with some people and fucking make music, I think that's the biggest thrill, and the most energy I think really happens when you have that going on.
Yeah, I definitely felt the difference when Jareth came out there and you guys seemed like you locked in. And I told these guys, and actually when we were done, when we got pizza and having a couple beers and bullshitting and stuff, I texted BC and said, "You're not going to believe it. I'm at the studio fucking having pizza and beer with Johnny Dee, and we're talking about Britny Fox." And he texted me back something like, "I fucking hate you," or something like that.
Oh, man.
But I mean,
that's
it was
pretty
cool.
much how it happens, you know what I mean? It's really like, many albums were made just in that exact way, a lot of pizza and a lot of beer.
Yeah, that's great. So now you recorded 2 albums with Waysted, correct?
Actually, only one. There was some other stuff released, way after, which were some demos and like some live things and all. But really, it was only Save Your Prayers. We actually lost our deal after that. We did a couple tours after that, but we ended up in California after the Iron Maiden support slot, and unfortunately didn't get to do another record with them. Okay. But that whole time was just really pretty amazing.
John, how did the Britny Fox thing come about? Did that come about right after the Waysted?
It did. I went from one to the other, actually. Let's see. I mean, I knew everybody beforehand. I mean, Dean, like I said, was the drummer in World War III before I was, so we knew each other. Billy Childs, Billy Degley, I grew up with him. He's one of the first guys I ever played with, like a couple years older than me. I learned a lot from the guy and the guys that I was playing with back then when I was just sort of learning. These dudes were like, showed up at my house and basically, dropped a fucking stack of vinyl on my head and said, learn all this shit, Rush and all this kind of fucking amazing stuff. And I was just like, at that point I was listening to Kiss, and I love Kiss, but like, the difference between playing a Kiss song and a Rush song was huge, So, I like known all the guys from Britny, and Mike was a huge fan or supporter of mine, Michael Kelly Smith, and he was really pushing for me to join the band. Now, when their original drummer, Tony Destra, passed away in a car crash, and that was real unfortunate, and, I decided to carry on, and they did reach out to me at that point and asked me to join the band, and I was still doing the Waysted thing, and I couldn't see coming off tour with Iron Maiden to fucking join a band that I had no idea where it was going to go, even though I knew the guys and stuff. So I went on with the Waysted thing, and they went on, continued, and got Adam Ferrioli to play drums, who was another huge influence on me from the local area, and he played in so many bands like Tangier and stepped into Britny Fox and took Tony's place for a while until they signed their deal. Something went down. The label wanted to make some changes, of course, as they do. And I got a second call from those guys, and they were like, we have to change drummers again. Here's another shot. And by this time, I was in L.A. with no real future with Waysted, and I was like, I'm definitely fucking there, So I got a flight back home to Philly, and had like one rehearsal with them for them to kind of just give me the nod, and then we went fucking steaming into a bunch of gigs and recording the first album. So that's pretty much how that happened.
Kind of sounds like a whirlwind there. Just swept you right in there, and
Yeah, it was cool. I mean, at that time and at the age I was, it was just like the next logical step. Everything seemed to be like a little bit of a stepping stone. And even though I had just come off the road with a band, from England that had a major deal, I kind of saw that like, oh wow, well this seemed to be going great. We just played with Iron Maiden for fucking 3 months, and now we're sitting here auditioning guitar players and we have no record deal. Like, how the hell does that happen? So I kind of saw it as a, one step back and then 10 steps forward kind of thing. And I wanted to keep that momentum going. So, yeah, I just kind of like was riding a wave.
Britny Fox, so they had their record deal just before you joined?
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
But you did record that first album, though, correct?
I did, yeah. I joined just as they were signing. I think I may have even been at the signing, the official signing. But, yeah, they had they've been courted by a few labels, and the one guy did step up and say, we're going to do this, and that was John Mervos from Columbia. So when I went back to Philly and they knew they had a solidified lineup, then they basically moved forward, and then, we set dates for the studio and whatnot, and did a little pre-production with the producer, we went into the warehouse down in Philly and started cutting basic tracks for that first album.
That's cool. So it doesn't seem like it really took a long time for you guys to really lock in as a band then.
No, not really. I mean, Billy and I had already played together a few years before, so we pretty much had like a chemistry. And, honestly, the band, the blueprint for the band was already laid out. I mean, Tony Destra was a killer player, and he, the guy just knew how to write drum parts for those songs, and the songs were very basic. I mean, it was only, the testament to that was the fact that we really, a lot of bands, get signed, go in the studio or go to pre-production and start like picking apart songs and changing stuff or having to call in outside writers and all this bullshit. Well, the 10 songs that we picked for the record were pretty much recorded the same way they were recorded for the demos that were done in a garage studio, 1 or 2 years before. So that, one thing about that band was they knew exactly what it was. There was no question what the image was, what the sound was, what the songs were. so it kind of dictated to me that like this is what you do, and there's no real straying from that. Just do what you got to do for these songs, and that's pretty much what we did.
Right, and it's a great album. It is for a debut album. It is kick ass. It's really good. And the thing is too, obviously Britny Fox is really known for the song "Girl School," but out of all the songs, not of like a huge lion's share of the songs that were quote unquote the hits for a band that are rockin' songs and not ballads like "Girl School," that's a song that I don't get sick of. Like that song comes like if like a Bon Jovi like "Lay Your Hands on Me" or something like that comes on, like I'll switch it. But like if "Girl School" comes on, I will always listen to that song. It is just such a great song, and the whole album. And my personal favorite on there is "Kick and Fight." Absolutely friggin' love that song.
Yeah, that's cool. I always loved playing that live. That was awesome.
Yeah.
I guess some songs just or some bands, I mean, obviously we'd all want it to be, to the level of a Bon Jovi, but with that comes, the fact that you just get sort of overkill, I mean, a lot of those songs, because they're so fucking massive, get played gazillions of times, and it just does wear on you after a while. But, the other side of that is, hey, sold 130 million albums or whatever, I'll take people being sick of my songs, or, there's always a trade-off.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that was a great period. That's for BC and myself. That was like our time, with the music. I graduated high school in '86. BC graduated in '88. And that was when there was it was not to the point quite yet of being oversaturated with bands, but it was getting close.
Oh, damn close, yeah.
But, we thought you guys, I personally thought I can't speak for anyone else, that I thought you guys really stood out. And I think your material actually, got stronger as you guys went along.
I think we were lucky in the fact that, like I mentioned earlier, we weren't like sort of kicked around by a label or something, whereas like, oh, well, what are you guys going to be? You need to wear this shit because that band wears that stuff. It was like, no, it's already laid out, dude. If you don't understand it, then, you just don't get it. I've seen so many, unfortunately, a lot of super fucking cool or talented bands even get signed and never get to the point of having a record release because labels, at that point, just wanted to like mold something into something that I don't think they even understood what it was that they were going for. They tried to turn a lot of bands into bands that they really weren't, whether it was dressing people up in silly clothes or making them play, a different version of what their strong suit was. I mean, it was a lot of that stuff going on. So we were lucky, man, really super lucky that we knew exactly what we were. And it was kind of like what I said, take it or leave it. We were scrappy fucking, we were like an alley cat, kicked around and fucking all dirty and shit. And we didn't really give a shit. I mean, it was like, okay, the guy, our singer, basically can't sing. He's not the greatest singer in the world, but he writes great songs and he screams his balls off, and we're, that's what we are. So we'll just fucking ride that till we can't ride it anymore. And we were, that appealed to certain people, I think, where other bands were trying to polish themselves off a little bit too much. We were a little bit rough around the edges.
Yeah, that's what I liked. I mean, I liked it because, like you said, it was rough. It wasn't really super polished. Because at that time, 88, 89, I thought music was getting to be like flooded with the ballads, the hits.
Yeah.
You had to have this certain look. It was just, you know what I mean? It just got really...
Yeah. I mean, that's, it was kind of like... you catch those waves, and then I think you basically want to, ride it the best you can, and if you're following the trend, it could either work or it could totally bite you in the ass. And, like I said, we were lucky that we at least got on the fucking wave, you know what I mean? For a little while anyway.
It's cool. I'm looking at the release dates, and actually your debut release was released on D-Day. I don't know if you realize that or not. I was just looking through it now. I'm like, holy shit! It's like, you guys landed too. So
right.
So I mean, that was crazy. So on that for that first album, who did you guys tour with?
We went, well, not immediately, but we went out and did some headline shows, small ones, and then we landed the Poison tour due to the craziness behind like the videos. We got Long Way to Love on MTV, and it started getting in the top 10. Really, we started selling records, and I think, not too long after that, Poison took notice, and I guess, they were like, wow, these guys are from PA as well. It'd be really cool. And, next thing you know, we were out with Poison. And, I think we did pretty much the whole run with them and a bunch of headline shows. But I don't remember, I think then we did Rat. We went out with Rat for a bunch before the Rat and Kicks.
Rat and Kicks and you guys. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and the first tour was Britney and Lita Ford and Poison.
Yeah, because the one with Rat and Kicks
we saw that in Broome County Arena.
Yeah, I think that Rat had Detonator out. I think then wasn't it? Maybe.
No, I think it was
Reach for the Sky.
Reach for the Sky.
Yeah, because they opened up with City to City.
Yeah. So I mean, and you guys were always. First time I saw you guys, I was like, "Holy shit!" And like I said before, "Kick and Fight." That song just like stuck in my head, like bang. And every time I do a playlist, that song is always on there. That's
cool.
One of my go-to songs. And
it's a pretty cool anthem,
So you come off the tour. They want you guys back in the studio, and you guys put out Boys in Heat, which is a fantastic album, definitely a great, sophomore album, because I think we even mentioned you guys on, we did a sophomore album podcast, and you guys were definitely one of the ones that was picked on there. And I like how it starts off with In Motion. It's, I don't know, I kind of call it a takeoff song, and it kind of just like launches the album out into, here's what it's going to be. It sets the tone for the whole album, and I think it's great.
Yeah, it was definitely that, a lead-off track, and also like a lead-off track for a live show as well. We wanted to kind of capture that energy and spirit, and it was, kind of all about touring and what we had just kind of gone through, and being all over the country and finally getting to do that kind of stuff, and it was a good tune.
Yeah, there's a lot of really strong material on that album. Like Long Way From Home is great, Dream On is great, She's So Lonely. And even the cover you guys did of Hair and the Dog was friggin' great. I personally think it totally blows away the original version and Guns N' Roses version that they did too.
Yeah, cool. I think, we loved all that old shit. It was always so fun to play, and, just put your own little spin on it, but not too much, I like covers that are kind of, not too far out there, We just basically, that's just basically our sound playing that song,
Britny Fox,
and that was, those were influences of ours, so it wasn't real far off. We grew up playing that shit, so it was only natural. It felt like a good fit to do that song with the sound that we had.
Yeah, I think it was definitely a great cover for you guys to do, and just the overall sound of it and the raspiness of the vocals in that totally hit it great there. And Standing in the Shadows, I think, is also a standout track on that album, and just great stuff. Was there any difference, like major difference between recording the first two albums for you guys? Whether it be treatment from the record company or the record label rather, or producers or anything like that. Was there any kind of outside influences trying to get in there at that point, or were you guys just still kind of riding the wave and just like doing what you guys needed to do?
Yeah, that's kind of, I don't want to be negative, but I think when all the kind of shit started to hit the fan a bit, and we were still completely buzzing from the first album, and to us, we felt that we were pulled off the road way too soon. We thought that first album still had a lot of leg to it, which I still agree, I still believe to this day if we would have release Goodbye to Jane or something other, another single or something. We sold 800 and some thousand albums, and, nobody can tell me that if we didn't keep going, we wouldn't have got over platinum. But for some reason, the label, they wanted to sell more records or just get us new product. And so we, reluctantly came off the road and started to put together the next record, and that's when Dean started to have some different. While we were on tour, he was writing a lot of stuff for the next record, which was a lot of those cool tunes. There was also stuff that he started to be influenced by what was going on. Like, oh man, we got to write hits, and we gotta tone down the image, and blah blah blah. It's just chatter in his ears from all different angles on tour, and the dreaded wanting to grow as a musician kind of thing. It's like, dude, I mean, I'm all about that and being creative and all, but like for us, I guess the band, now it's became like, okay, the three of us against him, and it was like, for us, it was like AC/DC made the same fucking record for 30 years. Like, we don't need to change our shit that drastically, you know what I mean? Christ, it's our second album. We don't have to be like, we don't have to make Dark Side of the Moon yet, so
yeah,
there was a lot of this kind of stuff going on, and and then we got a different producer. We wanted a better sound, and all this kind of stuff, and the label starts to put their 2 cents in a little bit more. And I remember having arguments about even the title of the album. We had some, I think our original working title was Fuel to the Fire or Fuel the Fire or something like that, and they were like, it sucks, we hate it, give us something different, and then Dean blurts out Boys in Heat, which was like, to me, just the cheesiest thing, you know what I mean? Like, it was like, put a Z in it because it's that cheesy, you know what I mean? And it was like a band that he had, which was like all in women's clothing and stuff, and he just thought, oh, that's a cool title, maybe I can recycle it. So, I was just like, I hate it, but we had to use it anyway. And to me, that was like all the stuff that the bands, were doing, with the X's and the Z's and all the kind of stupid shit. I was like, let's not do that. You know what I mean? We're already borderline here, So anyway, I'm rambling a bit, but to answer your question, there was a lot of outside influence.
Yeah, and it
seems
seems
like
a
lot of outside shit coming in and kind of hindering where we were going. Not to mention the internal shit that was going on at that time.
Yeah, I mean, you can see where you'd want to move forward, but you want to stay true to yourself with how you've been. And
and that also, you just sold that many records, and now people are kind of like basically proving to you that they love what you're doing. So what are you going to do? Turn around and fucking hit them over the head with a bunch of stuff that maybe they're not really prepared for or going to like? I mean, to me, that album's great, but I think there's probably like 5 or 6 songs that either could have been better or could have even been left off. I think there's like a few too many songs on there and stuff. But I mean, we're just kind of like, now that we were in the game, we kind of had to play a little bit more by the rules that were laid down,
Right, yeah, that is somewhat of a longer album. That one's like 51 minutes or something, and that's like Iron Maiden territory, for the length of an album. even though you guys have more songs, but like lengthwise, definitely. And speaking for myself back in the day, I mean, my attention span has not gotten any better as I've gotten older. But 13 songs on an album, like for then, that may be a little much, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, even at that time, there was a thing where basically if you cut more than 10 songs on a record, you weren't really making any extra money or anything for it, So, but yeah, I mean, to appease everybody, rather than sit there and argue about another song either being on or off the record, we were just like, let's just throw them all on there,
Right. And, would it be a case of like, well, you know what, fuck it, we're not going to really play them live anyways, kind of deal?
No, not really. I mean, we pretty much, wasn't like we were creating these studio tracks that we couldn't reproduce live. We really did sort of, everything on there was pretty much fought for by somebody, you know what I mean? Okay. So trying to be, sort of still hold on to the fragments of being a group that was going to have equal say. We were trying to appease everybody, whether it was the 4 guys in the band and the label A&R guy and the manager and blah, blah, blah. It was like we just tried to do the best that we could with everybody's opinion flying around.
Right. I think it's great. I enjoyed it. I actually just listened to it the other day, and that was before we even knew we were doing the interview with you today, and but it's great. And who did you guys tour with for this album?
Well, that's we went to Europe first, which was a big deal for us to finally get to go out of the country, So we went, we landed the Alice Cooper tour in Europe, and we went over there with, it was us, Great White, and Alice, and we got to play, some amazing shows over there and see European crowds for the first time and stuff like that. And then while we were on tour with the Coop, we started to get word that we might get on the Kiss tour in the States, and we were totally freaking out. And I believe it was Hot in the Shade, maybe.
Shade. Yeah, 89.
Yeah, and I think by the time we left Europe, we had been on the tour and off the tour. It was like, what the fuck is going on? I think they actually decided to postpone their dates. For whatever reason, maybe ticket sales or just like something, I don't know. My memory's pretty hazy, but I do remember that we were pretty much down for it, and then all of a sudden it wasn't happening, and they weren't going to go out at this time. So we were like fucking scrambling and kind of wondering what we were going to do, and there was no real other tour options for us at the time. So we ended up deciding to basically headline our own club tour, which, at that time, coming off of an arena tour, whether you were a support band or not, you're going from 15,000 a night to, 2,000 maybe, which is still fun, and you're playing your own show and stuff. There was like, a lot of cool things about it, but a lot of it was sort of a letdown. Right. And that's, so couple that with the fact that, like, we weren't really getting along with Dean anymore. It was just like, oh, boy, It's like kind of like we're slipping down this slope, and somebody's, like, pouring some oil on there at the same time. So we were just trying to forge ahead, but, we felt ourselves sort of losing some momentum there.
What was I guess you could say, the final straw with Dean in that did he just want to go in a different musical direction?
Yeah, it was, to me, I think he was always very self-promoting. I mean, the guy, there's the most creative one or the alpha whatever in every band, and that's cool. I mean, that you need a leader sometimes, because if you're going to sit there and fight amongst yourselves. 4 equal says means probably that not a lot is going to ever fucking get done. So, I appreciate what Dean did. I mean, he had the idea for the band, the name, the fucking most of the songs. He would come in with a riff and, the band would put their stamp on it or whatever. But it was like it constantly had to be beaten down on you that, I'm the guy, me, this and that. And, it was exhausting, man. It's like, dude, let's just be a band. And it was okay to be a band in the beginning because basically he needed us. And, and it was like, but after, a successful record and a tour and selling that many albums, all of a sudden it was like, well, see, I told you so. I'm the guy. I did everything. I can do it without anybody else. I don't need to argue any points about direction or anything. I can do whatever the fuck I want to do and write this kind of songs that I want to write. And all of a sudden he went from wanting to be Paul Stanley to wanting to be like Chris Robinson or something. I mean, it was like, dude, like slow the fuck down. You know what I mean? Like we need to like progress, in the direction that we're already going. Like, you know what I mean? So he started writing songs, was talking about basically not wearing the stage clothes anymore and stripping down. And, there was all the pressure from the, I guess the shift in the musical taste was happening. So everybody started getting confused. But basically that process was happening slowly during the making of the second album. And I think he finally, when we got on that club tour and he realized like we're not opening for Kiss now, we're sitting and playing these smaller shows, he probably thought that he was just gonna basically go do it all over again and have complete control over the whole thing and do whatever the hell it was that he wanted to do, be the Black Crowes or the Rolling Stones or whatever. I don't know how you go change direction that quick from something that's so successful. But that was the thing that we always disagreed upon,
So, Johnny, what's the process now that he's out and now you get Tommy Paris in? What is that process of, having singers come in? Like, how does that work with you guys at this time?
We basically, and by the time we got Tommy, it was like, it was already, we had been through the shit mill of all this, stuff in the press, Dean slinging stones and everybody trying to kind of get their point out there and whatnot. That was just stupid stuff. But we just thought, okay, well, he's doing his thing. We got to do ours. And we chose to stick together, and he was basically like, fuck the name of the band. You guys can have it. I don't want anything to do with it. And we're like, okay, fine.
Cool.
We kind of like it, so we'll take it and fucking roll with it, So we accepted a bunch of submissions from singers all over the place, tapes and whatnot, started auditioning, and Tommy came in, and we really dug his voice and the fact that he played guitar well. And, we needed to find somebody that could fit in sort of the Dean front end mold, but not necessarily, be Dean, because basically Dean was just a knockoff of Tom Kiefer anyway. So we thought, well, we don't want to have a third generation Tom Kiefer, so let's fucking get somebody that can actually sing. And so Tommy fit the bill, and his writing pretty much sealed it. Billy, I think, came up with a couple riffs like Louder and Over and Out and sent Tommy home with him, and he wrote to those musical ideas and sent them back, and we were like, this is fucking great. So we knew we had somebody that could sing, play guitar, and actually help write. And so that was pretty much what we went for. And then we just got in a room. We rented a place out in Sea Isle City, New Jersey in the middle of winter, and just like lived there and got to know each other and fucking wrote songs and demoed and recorded upstairs in the studio for like, couple months, and started to get the formation of a record and started getting in touch with certain people to see, we had an option with CBS to pick up the remnants of the band and release something, and they declined, passed on what we were doing. So we were like, okay. Oddly enough, our A&R guy who signed us the first time ended up at East West Atlantic. He heard what we were doing, and he decided to fucking sign the band again to a different label. So we were like, okay, cool,
Right. So now it's 1991. You release Bite Down Hard. How do you guys get Zakk Wylde and Ricky Rocket to back you guys up?
We went into one-on-one studios in L.A. Actually, we flew out to L.A. to prepare to do pre-production with Dwayne Barron and John Purdell and to get ready to record the record. And studio time was booked. And then one day we were, I guess, at our apartment or whatever, and got a call, and it basically was our manager said, look, there's a problem with the studio. Ozzy needs a little bit more time, so we need to give them like another week or whatever to, we're going to start a week later. And what happened was they submitted some mixes for the No More Tears album. Ozzy was in the studio prior to us with the same producers. And they had mixed the record, submitted it. The company didn't like it, and they wanted the record remixed. So they were finishing up some stuff, and we were hanging around. They were like, come on down, fucking hang out. So we would go down the studio and hang out and listen to songs from the record, and also play fucking Madden football with Zakk and Mike Inez, and, and just get up to whatever, just hanging around the studio, fucking shooting the shit and doing crazy stuff. And, so we build up a friendship with those guys from that. And then, obviously with the same producers around, everybody's kind of like, one phone call away. So we were like, I think Michael was like, I want Zakk to fucking play a solo on this record. And, he was like, of course. So he came down and blew that one out. And Ricky, I had invited down because we became such good friends during the Poison tour that we were on. I wanted to get him in, and I thought, we had this part on Midnight Moses, which was like a little percussion break. And I was like, who do I know that has some percussion? Oh, Ricky's right up the road, He's got fucking flutes and whistles and all kinds of crazy shit. He's a crazy dude. I'll get him down here to freaking go off for a few seconds in this part, And he was like, oh, hell yeah. So it was fun, It's just like stuff that breaks up the monotony of sometimes being in the studio for so long, So that was just fun. I think it's always cool to have, some people come in, or, if they're in the same studios, it's just to swing in and do something, sing some background vocals or whatever,
Right, definitely.
Yeah, that's cool. And I got to tell you, Bite Down Hard, I always say it's my go-to album, but like I love all the Britny Fox stuff, but like Bite Down Hard is like...
You put it on it.
Just like kick you in
Kicks
the
your ass
in the
from
head.
song 1 to 10.
And, songs like Six Guns Loaded, Louder, Liar, just Lonely Too Long is friggin' great.
Yeah.
Was there a kind of rejuvenated vibe in the studio now that you have Tommy Paris in there and you guys are have a kind of a new breath of fresh air there? How was the atmosphere with recording this one?
It was good, I mean, we all felt a little bit of freedom all of a sudden, It was kind of where all, it was after like an abusive relationship when you finally like fucking, can be yourself and sort of just, flourish. Like at that point it was like, hey man, we can grow and we can also keep the band mold, exactly where it needs to be. We don't have to be a different band. We have, some different ideas, but if we approach them with the sound and the feel and the know-how that everybody can put into it, everybody's individual thoughts, and there's personal differences and musical differences as well. But when you have a singer that's already, willing to do whatever the hell it is, and the guy can sing like up into the fucking stratosphere, it all of a sudden opens all kinds of different, musical possibilities. So we just took the best of everything and threw it all in the fucking stew that we already had cooking, and that's what we came out with. We had just total fun with it, and really, felt good about it. It wasn't like we sort of were sitting there going, okay, yeah, I guess, well, we need to play this song and to put this song on the record. It was just like, let's just do what the fuck we all agree on and what we want to do and make it sound amazing. And yeah, it was just a cool vibe, And we didn't really have any, at that point, we had nothing to lose because we basically had already lost the deal, lost the singer. So it was just like, make the best fucking album that these four people can make, and that's what we did. And it's cool because it felt more like a band album than just like playing somebody else's songs and being a band, but having one guy always tell you like, yeah, we're a band, but I'm the fucking man. You know what I mean? It's like, dude. So we felt great with that, and now looking back, it's one of the fan favorite albums, and that just
definitely.
like that makes me feel real good because I'm proud of that one.
I remember putting it on, like, and you got a new vocalist. Hey, let's see what this guy's like, and I was like blown away. I mean,
Yeah, and he, like you said, he can't sing into the stratosphere, but he does the other two albums' material, does it justice, and I think it's great, and he was just fucking tears it up.
Yeah, it was cool that he could sing, sing the earlier shit too, and play rhythm guitar and just like give us that element which we needed. If we were going to continue as Britny Fox and keep the name, obviously we needed to play, the old material as well. So to me, it was a great blend of everything.
Yeah, definitely, like you say, definitely a fan favorite. That's definitely one that I always throw on.
Cool.
So Johnny, does anybody in 1991? I know the kind of music we love. It's a tough time now. Do you guys just play clubs, or are you guys opening up for somebody at this time?
Regarding Britney, you mean?
Yeah, with
Bite
this
Down
album,
Hard.
with the Bite Down Hard album.
Oh, at that time. Okay, sorry. I thought you meant right now. I was like, okay. We did, let's see. I don't think we did. I mean, shit had dried up so bad at that point, man. You guys know
You're in a tough
what
time
91 was like,
Yeah.
There was basically, no love for anybody with,
with
fucking
Aquanet.
hairspray
Right.
in their hair anymore, So, even though we just came out and tried to kick people in the teeth, we basically were scaled down as far as we could possibly go. We did a club tour and did some great shows, all the hardcores fucking hung on for dear life as we were. So we played to a lot of cool fans and did a lot of cool shows, but it was hard, man. We weren't used to hunkering down and touring in a fucking van. I mean, we were like a year or two before like a tour bus band, and all of a sudden now we're like, holy shit, playing these shithole gigs and like driving in a van for 10 hours and stuff. And so yeah, we did the best that we could at that time, but I don't remember us really, other than maybe the odd one-off, with Kicks or with another band here and there. I think we basically did a tour, a headline tour of clubs. The bigger tours were drying up, and we certainly weren't getting on any of them, because even, for as cool as Boys in Heat was, sold not even fucking half of what the first album did. So really we kind of left that part out of the story, which was that, there was a severe decline which probably, led Dean to want to bail anyway. And the fact that the band, kind of fell off the face of the earth with the second album. We really didn't have even the time to build anything, I think right when Dean quit, we had released Dream On as a single, and it started to really perk up in certain areas, on the radio, and we thought wow, we might actually finally have a fucking radio hit, because we had no radio hits. It was strictly MTV album sales.
Right.
And we had Dream On the radio, and things were actually, although they didn't appear to be really going forward, if that song, I think, had a chance to really kick in, we may have recovered from all that. But the record didn't sell shit. I think it sold 200,000 copies or something, compared to almost platinum on the first one. So that kind of ruined our chances, even with Bite Down Hard, where we fell further off of people's radar, plus the whole grunge thing and the change of the musical tides,
Right. I always like to get everyone's different views on, and I'd like to get yours, Johnny, on what do you think one of the main contributors was to the decline of this type of music? My personal feeling is that it was oversaturation, that there was just so much shit out there, and that people were looking for something different. And you got the grunge, which I don't understand because I hate that shit. What's your thoughts on that?
I think what you're saying is definitely part of it. Oversaturation, timing, just it did get to, we appeared sort of late in the game of the whole 80s metal, or whatever you want to call it. Just big hair and power ballads and just craziness, and I think, everything has to run its course pretty much, whereas you had, Guns N' Roses sort of started back to that sort of organic thing, where they sort of came out sort of glammy and then kind of went back to the, a little bit more dirty and stuff like that, so there was a tide coming in that direction anyway. That's pretty obvious that it was going from the cotton candy back to the fucking greasy French fries, what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I think oversaturation and just people, wanting heavier stuff. And really, grunge, the grunge that broke through was just nothing more than fucking heavy rock and, a little bit more of a darker subject matter. But, that was the age, there was a lot of kids with more angst. And, we grew up in the fucking 80s. We pretty much had nothing to worry about,
Right.
It was all about fucking kick-ass music and having a good time. And
The only thing we worried about was where we were going to get more beer.
yeah, exactly.
That was the big worry.
So, I think it all kind of, unfortunately, just kind of got, flooded over by another wave of,
just the different
style and sound and everything, and even, lyrical content.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I love bands like Alice in Chains and stuff like that, and but it just seems like a total shift from party to everything else.
Yeah, it is weird how it did seem to be so quickly, but
it kind of almost went heavy music to punk kind of themes, anti-establishment and just I hate my life kind of shit. Just like you said, the angst. But there was some good stuff to come out of there. But it was just weird, just the kind of total shift in it. There are some bands out there that rolled the wave out and they're still around. And you guys even came back in 2000 and did Springhead Motor Shark. And
oh yeah.
What did you do in those intervening years?
Luckily, I sort of had extended life period, because after Britney pretty much, after beating our heads against the wall in 92 and realizing, like, where do we even go with this, I don't know if we ever really sat back. We never really took the time to recuperate and go like, hey, man, let's sit down and kind of regroup and maybe figure out where we want to go with this. I mean, we were so fed up and kind of sick of, really, I don't even know what it was, if it was each other or just the fact that we couldn't, really get to where we wanted to go. We just kind of said see ya and didn't really even talk about continuing. So I left and I did something in between. I tried to help some friends out in a band called Mariah, and they were based in Minneapolis. I think I went right from the Britney tour to Minneapolis to play a last gig with them, and they were supposed to do a record and stuff, but they were even more, looking back on that, they were even more commercial than Britney was. So they were pretty much doomed before they even started. They were super, super polished AOR, amazing songs, great singer and all, but just completely not for that time at all. So that didn't last very long, but it was kind of an intermediate thing that I was doing just to keep playing and working again with my buddy Jimmy DeLella that I was in Waysted with. And so that blew up, and then we found ourselves back home in Philly. All of a sudden, this opportunity comes about, and Doro Pesh happens to be in South Jersey working in a little demo studio with her bass player, Nick Douglas, who's from Blackwood, New Jersey. They were finishing a record, I believe, and looking for some musicians to go on tour in Germany. So Nick says, I know this guy, I know that guy, let's audition, blah, blah, blah. So they form this touring band for Doro in Jersey. And the strangest fucking thing is that Jimmy DeLella again gets the keyboard guitar gig. And they also had Chris Branco on drums, who was in Dean's second band, Black Eyed Susan. So there was like all these 6 degrees of separation going on. I think they went to Germany and they played a bunch of gigs, did some TV shows and whatnot. And for whatever reason, Chris decided he didn't want to be in the band. He didn't want to be in Germany, and whatever his personal reasons were. Jimmy calls me again from Germany. He's like, dude, Doro's looking for a drummer. This slot's going to open up, and I'm going to tell her about you. And I was like, fucking A, I'm sitting here like eating my own hair, waiting for something to happen, And so next thing you know, of course, he tells her, Doro, that my friend Johnny Dee is available and we should get him. And she's like, oh, wow, Johnny Dee, I remember from Britny Fox, right? And I was, and Jimmy's like, yeah, exactly. And she's like, oh, cool. So she flies all the way over with her manager to Philly. And I go in a rehearsal studio and play with them. And that sealed the deal right there. And so I ended up joining Doro. And this was early 93 or something. So I wasn't down for that long before I landed that gig. And then I ended up in Germany realizing that, holy shit, grunge wave hadn't really hit. It hadn't hit over there yet. And there was still this massive, just cool anthem-y rock thing still going on. And I was like, this is fucking great. I'm alive again. I have a gig with playing the kind of music that I'm familiar with and whatnot. And and she was doing killer business over there, and so that was where I ended up. So basically, to answer your question, what I do in between things is just try to keep myself busy, keep playing. I mean, I'm always either recording or doing cover gigs or whatever it may be, trying to build up bands. I've been in a couple projects that I tried to get from the writing stage to the recording stage and possibly touring, but, it doesn't always work out. I mean, it's so much harder now, being the age I am and the guys that I'm playing with. You don't want a 50-year-old in a band with a bunch of, 15, 16-year-olds. It's not going to happen. So, my choices are pretty limited, but it is pretty cool because there's a lot of older artists that are seeing, their careers sort of rekindled now because we've become, nostalgia acts, if you will. I know that's probably a derogatory comment, but it is fucking reality.
Yep.
And, 80s metal is now nostalgic. So it's kind of cool in a way because, I'm still playing the same stuff that I've been playing my whole life and having fun doing it.
Going back to, you said Doro, she's doing like Germany and that. I don't think they ever changed over there. I mean, hard rock has always been strong over there.
True.
From back
Very
in the day
true.
to today. I mean, there's bands
Absolutely.
from the day that are huge over in these other countries, Europe and everything. That I just think the United States sucks because it's very
For fans.
for fans, not the country.
Right.
But music
Yeah,
just
it's
changes
very,
so much.
a little bit less of an attention span here, you
Yes.
know? And I realized that when I went over there that, if to this day, if you go to Germany as a young band and you win over a crowd or a bunch of crowds on tour, even if it's in a fucking bar, you have the possibility to build something for life there, you know what I mean? These people just fucking love live music. Now, I'm not saying anything. I know there's people that love live music just as much in my fucking home country, you know what I mean? But it's it's so big here, so spread out, so many different fucking opinions, so many ways of getting music and listening to music and seeing, it's just, it's almost that overkill thing again, It's Germany's a smaller country, they're very, very dedicated to music, and their, live music is huge there still, and all sorts of types of music they support and influenced, they don't lose flavor after, a year or two. I mean, if you,
Exactly.
like I said, if you go there and win over a crowd and keep going back and building it every year, you can go there forever, man. It's and I see it all the time, bands, certain bands. There's a band, obviously you guys know the Hooters, they pretty much were massive in the 80s, different style, but, they build up a big following in Germany, and they continue to go over there and kill it every year, and it's that just shows a testament to A, their music, and B, the German music fan that, will follow you for life, and that's really kind of fucking cool.
Yeah, because we're friends with Carl Kennedy from the Rods, and and they go over and they play festivals almost every summer over in Europe, and they're fucking huge over there. And I've seen them in clubs over here with 40 people. It's what the hell is going on? And Carl, they go, they play Italy, and they play the festivals over in Sweden and Germany and stuff like that. And he said it's insane just the amount of people that just get into that. And like you said, I think it could be a geographical thing, that we are so spread out, and they may not get as much of that as we do, but it's great. It's just excellent.
It is excellent for a lot of bands that get to go over there. And there is, they were deprived back when we were fucking whooping it up over here in the 80s, and tits were flying at shows and all kinds of fucking craziness going on.
Yeah.
Big party, they're over there fucking behind the Berlin Wall and shit, and not getting all the stuff that we had. So when finally, they were able to get all that, it was like fucking,
They really embraced it.
insane, because they're like, yeah, bring it, man. They still to this day, they're like, why don't these fucking bands come over here, And most bands wouldn't go there because, it was costly, and, they were having too much fucking fun over here, going around the U.S., just, playing to all those big crowds. So it's,
Right,
just the way that it all kind of panned out for everyone.
I don't want to keep you for too much longer. We really appreciate you coming out here. But real quick, let's tell us about the kick, the NXS experience. I mentioned
Yes.
that earlier in the show. How did that come about? And I think it's great. I think they are, underrated band for the hard rock fans that we have. But they have some really good, excellent stuff out there.
Absolutely. I mean, they're a band that, they were a little bit different. They kind of covered so many different styles and bases. They were literally a new wave, kooky 80s band, in the beginning, and then they became this fucking pop rock juggernaut, then a dance, groove band. I mean, they were just an awesome band. But besides all that, back to New Jersey, there's a guy named Corey Massey who's a little bit younger than me, but he's a phenomenal singer, kick-ass bluesy voice, super cool guy. He was in a band with Michael Kelly Smith after Britny Fox called Razmanaz. Michael did his own sort of project. And I met Corey during that time, and we became fast friends and always wanted to play together. And we did have an attempt at that in the 90s. We were writing together with a couple other friends and trying to put a band together. We didn't do a lot of gigs, but we made some cool recordings and wrote some good songs and stuff like that. But anyway, we kept in touch. At one point, he had seen an Aerosmith tribute band or something, and he was like, looking around, there was 1,000 or 2,000 people in the crowd, and he's like, what is going on? And kind of realized where the tribute scene was these days, and he was like, I could fucking do this, and he had an idea to do this in Excess tribute. I think he actually may have been a little bit before that. He did try out for that TV show they had.
Oh, okay.
And where they were trying to find a replacement for Michael Hutchins. And he didn't get very far in that, which still boggles my mind because the dude's fucking voice is killer, but who knows what they were looking for. And, it's just that was a weird reality TV moment in
crazy.
Time anyway. I didn't really, wasn't not my thing. But anyway, he had the idea to start this tribute and not doing the typical Aerosmith, Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, whatever, and he thought just In Excess is exactly what you had said, a band that was sort of underrated, kind of so many great songs. He felt like it was within his range singing wise, and so he decided to take a chance at it. And he got some guys, local buddies, that friends from the South Carolina, Greenville area, found a bunch of cool dudes and players, and he just put it together. And they were about together a year before I got a call because they didn't really have a steady enough drummer. And Corey just was like, dude, I've been wanting to play with you for so long, and I think, if you'd be into it, I'd love to have you involved in this. And I was like, dude, I would love to play with you and also play those songs, and just do something fun without really any pressure of anything, other than people showing up. It's like, I know there's In Excess fans out there, that kind of would love to hear the stuff live because the band really doesn't exist at the moment. And so, it all kind of made sense, and I really wanted to do it. And it's something that goes well with what we were talking about earlier, which is having stuff to do in between other things. So I'm just really happy to have this gig. These guys are fucking so cool, and it's such a fun gig. Playing a little bit different style. We're already wise to kind of strive in a different direction, you know, and just have fun with it. So, yeah, we're starting to get some cool gigs and keeping pretty busy this year, picking up.
I can't wait to see that because NXS when they had their singer from the show, they were playing shows, and they played. I'm sure you're familiar with Mohegan Sun, the casino up by us, and they were playing a show there with the Badleys, and they played. They opened up with. Do you guys do the drum opera?
No.
Oh, that
no.
If you guys did that, that'd be amazing.
Yeah,
I don't know if you're familiar. I don't know if you're familiar
we'll probably add stuff like that down the road a bit, you know.
Yeah, because they opened up with that, and then they played. I think they played 3 songs, and then the skies just opened up, and they ended up canceling the show because all their gear got soaked and all that shit.
That was an outdoor gig.
Yeah, it was at the track there. So,
oh wow,
you know, I'm excited. I didn't even tell my wife about this show yet, and she'll be like, "We're definitely going." Which, you know, she's not a huge concert fan, but she will definitely be happy to go to that one. So, you know, we can't wait to check that out.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, it's definitely it's a cool thing. I mean, you know, say what you will about tributes. I mean, I'm even like on the fence about them, and I'm in one. So it's like, but you know, I really feel that this band does an amazing job musically in respect to that stuff. You know, it's almost an unfortunate, sad story. You know, that whole.
Oh yeah.
Their whole thing, you know, and it's cool, man. It's like to see people that love that band, you know, and some people who never got the chance to see them, you know, digging us and what we're doing. It's like it's a really cool feeling, man. I mean, it's like I think it kind of makes it okay. You know what I mean? Like I wouldn't want to go out there, dress up like them, you know, and wear wigs and do some crazy shit like that. But I mean, this is basically like a musical tribute, and they have so many fucking great songs. It's almost hard to pick, you know, which ones to do. Like you mentioned, the drum opera and stuff. There's a billion other songs that, you know, people suggest, and it's like to cram them all into one.
Right, you can't please
gig,
everybody,
you know. No, but it's like you want to try, you know.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so hopefully you'll dig it, and we're looking forward to that Steel Stacks thing. I mean, that's such a cool venue.
Yeah, that's great. And, you know, Johnny, I want to thank you for coming on here and, you know, giving your time up. I know you're a busy guy. You got a ton of shit going on. We thank you very much. Guys, that was a fucking awesome interview. What do you think, BC?
I don't know. I've always been a big supporter, fan, whatever you want to call it, of Johnny Dee. I mean, he's just, and as you guys heard, totally awesome guy.
Yeah, definitely. You know, Britny Fox, just another one of those bands. They come out with 3 albums, and you know, grunge just kills everything. And I love to see what they would have actually did in a couple of years after that, because they, you know, Bite Down Hard is probably, in my opinion, my favorite out of the 3, and I just thought they were going down a great road at that time. But
give it a BC. Fucking Britny Fox.
To be a fly on the wall for the No More Tears, like mastering, listening, and Madden playing with Zach Wilde and Mike Inez, that's just crazy stuff.
Yeah, it was great. And it was weird how the interview came about. I spoke about Johnny Dee on a couple episodes before about being in the studio with him. A couple weeks ago was Johnny's birthday, and I texted him, happy birthday. And he said he was in Europe. The day before we recorded this episode, he texted me back, "Oh, hey, thanks for the birthday wishes. I know it's late." Like LOL, that type of message. I was like, okay, that was cool. So I hadn't messaged him back, and I was just thinking, okay, now that he's answering, maybe I'll see if we can get that interview going. And before I could even do that, he texted me and said, "Hey, how about we get that podcast going?" I'm like, all right, that sounds good. When are you available? He said, "How about tonight, which is the night before we recorded, or tomorrow night, which is now when we just did the interview." It was great. Johnny is a super nice guy, very talented, totally kick-ass drummer, down-to-earth guy. Like I said, I saw him in the studio playing total professional. I just thought it was an awesome interview. Great guy. A lot of awesome stories.
Yeah, it blew my mind how, he just, an hour and a half, he just let us, break into his time, which is kind of cool, being how busy he is.
And it's only a fraction.
Sure.
Oh yeah.
And I kind of feel bad. I cut it a little short because we definitely wanted to get into a lot of the Doro stuff. We got into a little bit of the festivals and everything like that. But we're gonna have Johnny back on in the in the future, and we will pick up from like Springhead Motor Shark and all this Doro stuff and the albums he's been on for Doro and everything. I wanted to just kind of get the Britny Fox stuff out of the way and talk about the NXS thing he's got going on now. But just a super nice, down-to-earth guy.
Absolutely.
And Johnny, once again, thank you for, giving us an hour and a half of your time.
We really appreciate it. Yeah,
Yep.
and it's great to get an insight into
The behind the scenes.
Yeah, what took place, back in that day of the music that we really love and the scene at the time and everything. It was funny because we had a couple questions and stuff written down, and BB had about 4 of them written down. And every time Johnny talked, he just boom, he knocked BB's question right out of the box.
That was funny.
He's scribbling shit out, and then like 5 minutes later, he boom, hit another point. BB's like,
Come on! I might as well just sit here and not talk.
yeah, so it was great. So I hope you guys out there really enjoyed the interview, and we'll just go once around the table here one more time, and we'll say our goodbyes.
Yeah, once again, Johnny, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And 6 guns loaded, kicks ass.
Again, thank you, Johnny. And then hopefully we get some future Britny Fox shows again.
Thanks, Johnny. We really appreciate you coming on the podcast. I can't wait to hear more of your stories, and I love when we do these interview podcasts because you get some really cool insight into some of the stuff you just grew up listening to. It's really awesome.
Go out and check out some Britny Fox. Go spin that first record, or Boys in Heat. Definitely spin Bite Down Hard. And if you haven't heard of or heard Springhead Motor Shark, listen to that. That's a really solid album also. So check those guys out. And real quick, I'm going to put these guys on the spot. Favorite Britny Fox song, BC?
Black and White.
6 gun loaded.
Oh, you already said
Yeah, I
this.
already said that.
Dylan.
I have to go with the classic drums of Girls' School.
I do like that. Has that extra bang in there. Excellent. And I mentioned mine earlier. It was Kick and Fight, definitely. So you guys get out there, listen to Britny Fox. Those guys kick ass. We will see you next time, and there will be a next time.